me first start with Mr. AMITABH Kant, who, as the representative of the government, as someone who has spearheaded the direct benefit transfer, is best placed to tell us. Mr. Kant, if you can tell us what is the current numbers in terms of direct benefit transfer schemes. When I last read, and I think that's Mr. Sriram's report, 259 schemes were onboarded with direct transfer of subsidies. What do you see as the future? Do you see more schemes come in? And do you think that will create enough data for banks to give credit to those beneficiaries?
Lata, first of all, let me say that this is a tectonic shift, largely because, one, that, government is pushing for efficiency, and government's view is that every single scheme of the government must go through DBT because this will ensure that leakages come to an end in this country, and that's important. That's number one. And I think secondly, when you do this, and as you push for digital payments in a very big way, when we started all this, the total volume of transaction used to be just 2 million, which has grown to over about 105 million. In value terms, it's seen huge growth, and as you yourself mentioned, we've seen such a huge amount of disruption. I mean, it's not just Google's stage, but the important thing is that the power, the billion cube which you talked about, but behind that, behind the billion cube, you also have the UPI. So a lot of innovation is taking place largely because of the UPI. When we came out with Bheem, we thought Bheem will be the big game changer. But subsequent to this, you had Samsung coming out with its own app. You had Google coming out with its Tej. And Tej has suddenly gone and taken 70% of the market in value terms. But soon you'll have WhatsApp. And WhatsApp will start encouraging payments. So you'll have a huge amount of disruption. So what will happen eventually is that you'll throw up so much of credit history. You'll enable so much of credit history that you'll ensure that credit flow will happen on the basis of your digital transaction and your digital record. I remember when many years back, when about almost a decade and a half back, I was working with fishermen in Kerala, and we were trying to lift them up. We were trying to open their bank accounts. We were trying to provide new technology, outboard motors, fiberglass crafts, new fishing nets, and we were opening bank accounts for self-help groups. I was struggling. I was running from bank to bank, one bank manager to another. It was taking me 9 to 10 months to open bank account for one single fisherman. Forget fisherwomen. Fisherwomen was even a bigger nightmare. Last fortnight, I walked into Federal Bank for the Onam dinner or something. I was able to open my bank account in 55 seconds flat. So imagine from 10 months to 55 seconds is the tectonic shift that is taking place. And eventually, as a consequence of all this huge disruption that is taking place, you will see so much of data, and data analysis will enable you to provide credit, and that will enable you to lift a vast segment of your population above the poverty line. So this is digital payment will drive financial inclusion, and financial inclusion will drive lifting people above poverty line.
The numbers that Professor Sriram quotes, smartphones, and I think this is an RBI study, smartphones account for 7% of the population, mobile phones account for 43% of the population, and network coverage is for 77% of the population. So we still have an unincluded lot. As far as the 259 programs of the government, I'm again quoting reports, of these 259 schemes, only 74 schemes are general. The 300 million or 30 crore Jan Dhan accounts are for families. They are not for individuals. One expects that individual will service a family of 4 people. But there are only 74 schemes that go generally to anybody. 11 schemes are only for women. And 52% of the women, according to Professor Sriram's study, are still not people with accounts. Again, 106 schemes of the DBT are for students. 52% of them are not seeded with Aadhaar. Likewise, 61 are for organizations. Again, therefore, the fact that they go through bank accounts is not going to mean that it is going to reach more people. The other bigger question, which I will come back to you to ask, is that this is only money that has gone to these accounts, and at the moment the entire Jan Dhan account is about 66,000 crores. These are just one-way transactions. They have not created enough data for any bank to be able to give credit. So at the moment it looks like we are a distance away from DBT to be able to create transactions to give credit. But I'll come back to you to ask you what you see as the next step. I wanted to ask Mr. Wiegand of the Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation, what has been the experience in other countries? I mean, the notable example everyone has been quoting for the last 15 years is Kenya, where the M-Pesa was able to create a lot of inclusion. But can you take us through other countries in Africa, or maybe China, to tell us whether there has been a tectonic shift in terms of financial inclusion?
Thank you, Lata. Yes, I think there absolutely has been a tectonic shift. I think when you look at India, I have no doubt that if we go forward 4 or 5 years, there will be a tectonic shift. And when we look back to where we are today, we'll think that what's happened to date is only tremors. And you only need to look to other markets to see the volumes. So in China, so UPI, I believe in November, passed 100 million transactions in the month. In China, if you just look at Alipay and Tencent, the two dominant mobile providers, they do 10 billion transactions every month, so 100 times what India is doing. And there's no reason why India wouldn't reach those volumes quite quickly. And China has come up to this level in just a matter of a few years. And so that's a clear example where it's really dominating the local environment. And it's leading now to revolutions in terms of credit and changing the whole value chain across a number of industries. You mentioned Africa, and clearly M-Pesa in Kenya was the first to launch mobile money and reach very impressive levels of penetration. But there are other markets now that are leapfrogging them. Two that really come to mind are Tanzania and Ghana. And unlike Kenya, which was dominated by a single provider, Tanzania and Ghana have enabled a competitive environment where you have multiple mobile network operators working on an interoperable basis, and their growth has been exponential, and the reach is phenomenal. So in India, you have roughly 100 cash points, largely agents, per 100,000 population. Ghana and Tanzania have on the order of 400, so 4 times the reach into rural villages in terms of financial access.